He promised me nothing would change. He said, Ami, you'll always be my first home. But after his wedding, I became a guest in his life. The laughter, the small talks, the warmth, all gone. He'd come for a few minutes, smile politely, and rush back to his new life. I'd sit in the same chair, the one by the window, wondering if I did something wrong. Maybe mothers aren't forgotten in a day. Maybe they're slowly replaced by priorities they once helped build. My name is Fatima Ahmed, and I am a 62-year-old widow. I live in the same small house in Lahore where I raised my only son, Bilal. This house, its walls still smelling faintly of rosewater and sandalwood, used to be a universe. It was where my late husband, Rizwan, would read the morning paper aloud, where Bilal would do his homework at the kitchen table, his little legs dangling, asking me a million questions. After Rizwan passed from a sudden fever 10 years ago, Bilal became my entire world. He was my son, my friend, my confidant. He held my hand and said, Ami, I will never, ever leave you alone. You are my responsibility, and I believed him. I poured every rupee I had, every ounce of strength into his education. I sold my wedding gold to send him to university. I watched him grow into a successful, brilliant man running his own software company. I was so proud my heart would ache with it. And then he met Sonia. She was beautiful, I will not lie. She looked like a woman from a glossy magazine, all sharp angles and expensive perfume, with a voice that was soft and polished, like a smooth stone. When Bilal brought her home, my heart sank, but I smiled. I welcomed her. I tried to teach her how to make his favorite dish, the slow-cooked biryani he loved. She just laughed, a sound like tiny bells, and said, Oh, Ami, we just order in. It's so much easier. Bilal, the boy who used to sit on the kitchen floor and eat from my hands, just nodded. Times are changing, Ami, he said, not meeting my eyes. If you're still listening, tell me where you're watching from. Does this story sound familiar? Every comment you leave is a small light in a very quiet room. And if this story is already touching your heart, please don't forget to like it, so it can find others who might be feeling just as alone. The wedding was a grand affair, something I could never have afforded. I sat in a corner wearing the simple silk sari Rizwan had bought me, watching my son laugh and dance with his new bride. He looked happy. That's all a mother wants. But after the wedding, the silence began. The daily calls became weekly. The weekly calls became hurried, 2-minute check-ins. Ami, I'm fine. Is everything okay? Good, I have to go, Sonia is waiting. He stopped coming by himself. He would only visit with her for exactly 30 minutes every other Sunday. He would sit on the sofa, not the floor. He would drink the tea I made, but his eyes would be on his phone. Sonia would just smile, looking around my small, clean house with an expression I couldn't quite place. It wasn't disgust, it was boredom. As if my whole life, my memories, were just a dull, dusty room she was forced to wait in. I told myself I was being selfish. I told myself this is the way of the world. A son belongs to his wife. But my heart knew the difference between a son who is busy and a son who is gone. I was sitting in that same chair by the window last Tuesday, watching the rain fall, when the pain started. It wasn't a sharp pain, but a deep, heavy ache in my chest, a tightness that stole my breath. I felt a wave of dizziness, and my hand flew to the small table beside me, knocking over my cup of tea. I tried to stand, but my legs felt like water. I slid from the chair onto the floor. I lay there on the cold marble, the spilled tea soaking into my shawl. I wasn't scared. I was just tired. But then I thought of Bilal. I had to tell him. I crawled to the telephone on the wall, my hand shaking. I dialed his number. It rang once, twice, 3 times and went to voicemail. Bilal, Beta, please call me. I am not feeling well. I waited. The clock on the wall ticked, each second a hammer blow. Nothing. I dialed again. This time someone picked up. Hello? It was her, Sonia. Her voice was bright but annoyed. Oh, Ami, is everything all right? Bilal is in a very important meeting. He can't be disturbed. I was breathing heavily, the pain making it hard to speak. Sonia, Beta. I've fallen. I can't get up. My chest, it hurts. Please, I need Bilal. There was a pause. A long, cold silence where I could hear music in the background. Was she at a restaurant? Ami, you always get so dramatic, she said, her voice losing its sweetness, turning flat and cold. I'm sure it's just a sprain. You know how busy he is. He's trying to build a life for us. He can't come running every time you have a small ache. Can you call a neighbor? We'll try to check on you this weekend. Maybe. Before I could even whisper the word, please, I heard the click. She had hung up. I lay there, the receiver still in my hand, the dial tone buzzing in my ear. The rain lashed against the window. And in that moment, I knew. I wasn't just forgotten. I was being erased. I wasn't a priority who had been replaced. I was a problem, a nuisance to be managed, and then dismissed. The ache in my chest was still there, but a new feeling was rising. A cold, hard clarity that cut through the pain. My son was not coming. My son, the one I had raised, was trapped behind a wall I could not climb. And the woman who held the key had just locked the door. I closed my eyes, not in defeat, but in a strange, terrifying calm. I was alone, and if I was going to survive this, I would have to do it by myself. I don't know how long I lay on that floor. The rain had softened to a drizzle, and the room was growing dark. The pain in my chest had subsided into a dull, heavy throb, but my left arm felt numb, as if it belonged to someone else. The buzzing of the dial tone was the only sound. I hung up the phone. I did not call a neighbor. I did not cry. Crying is for women who believe someone will come to wipe their tears. I knew, with a certainty that chilled me to the bone, that no one was coming. I used my one good arm, my right arm, to pull myself toward the door. I dragged my shawl, the one soaked in cold tea, behind me. Every pull was a lifetime. I thought of Rizwan. I thought of him teaching Bilal how to ride a bicycle, his strong hands on the seat. "You are strong, Beta," he would say. "Even when you fall, you are strong." I was his wife. I was strong too. I pulled the main door open, letting the cold, damp air wash over my face. I sat on the stoop in the dark and waited. I did not wait for my son. I waited for a stranger. A rickshaw, its single headlight cutting through the gloom, was turning the corner. I raised my hand. It was the heaviest thing I had ever lifted. The driver, an old man with a kind, wrinkled face, stopped. He saw me, half collapsed in the doorway, and his eyes widened. He didn't ask questions. He simply got out, helped me stand, and guided me into the back. "Hospital," I whispered, and he nodded. At the hospital, the lights were too bright. The smell of antiseptic burned my nose. A young doctor rushed over, his face serious. He put a small clip on my finger. He listened to my chest. He looked at me with a sudden, sharp panic. "Ami," he said, his voice urgent. "You are having a heart attack. A mild one, but it is a heart attack." He called for nurses. They put a mask on my face. They put a needle in my arm. As they wheeled me away, I looked at the young doctor. "Can I make one phone call?" I asked. He nodded. "Please," I said, my voice muffled by the mask. "Call Haroon, my husband's friend." I gave him the number. I did not give him Bilal's. When I woke up, the first face I saw was Haroon's. He was sitting by the bed, his hands clasped over his walking stick, his face a mask of worry. Haroon was my Rizwan's oldest friend, a man who believed in duty and honor. "Fatima," he said, his voice thick. "My child, what happened?" I told him. I told him about the pain, the fall, the call to my son. I told him about Sonia's voice, the music in the background, the cold, casual dismissal. Haroon's knuckles went white as he gripped his stick. He said nothing for a long time. He just stared at the wall. Then he said she did not tell him. A son, even a bad one, would not hear those words and do nothing. She did not tell him. And I knew he was right. The door opened 2 hours later. Bilal rushed in, his face pale. But he was not alone. Sonia was right behind him, her hand on his arm, her eyes wide with fake, glittering tears. "Ami! Oh my God, Ami!" Bilal fell to his knees by my bed, grabbing my hand. "We just got the message. Haroon uncle called us. Why didn't you call me?" "Why?" I looked at him. And then I looked at her. Sonia was already crying. "Oh, Fatima ji, I'm so sorry," she sobbed, dabbing her eyes with a silk handkerchief. "When you called, I told Bilal you sounded breathless, but he was in the middle of closing that big international deal. He just couldn't leave." She was a brilliant actress. She was rewriting the story in front of my very eyes. I told him you sounded unwell," she continued. "But you know how you get, Ami. We thought it was just your blood pressure. If I had known, if I had dreamed it was this." Bilal looked at his wife, then at me, his eyes torn. "Ami, she's right. You do worry. You know I would have come. I would have broken down the door. But Sonia said, she said you were just tired." I said nothing. I just stared at my son, the boy I had nursed through fevers, the boy whose every breath I knew. He was looking at me, but he was listening to her. He was begging me to agree with her, to make this easy for him, to absolve him. Harun, who had been silent in the corner, cleared his throat. The sound was like a rock falling. "You heard music in the background, Fatima?" he asked, his voice casual. Sania's head snapped up. Her crying stopped for a split second. We were at a dinner meeting," she stammered. "It was with the clients. It was loud." Bilal nodded quickly. "Yes, Ami, a client dinner. It was so important." Harun stood up, walking to the bed. He looked down at Sania. "A heart attack," he said, his voice dangerously soft. "And you, a young, healthy woman, could not tell the difference between tired and a woman gasping for breath?" Sania flinched. Bilal stood up. "Uncle, please. She feels terrible." "It was a mistake, was it?" Harun said. He turned to me. "Fatima, I am going to handle the bills. You are not to worry." He then turned back to Bilal. "And you will stay here with your mother tonight, alone." Sania's mouth opened, a small O of protest. But Harun's gaze was like steel. She said nothing. After she left, the room was quiet. Bilal sat in the chair, staring at his expensive shoes. He didn't know what to say. The silence between us was no longer the comfortable silence of a mother and son. It was the cold, awkward silence of strangers. Finally, Harun spoke. "Fatima," he said, "I have been meaning to ask. Are your finances in order? Is he still taking care of the house, the bills?" I hesitated. I had not wanted to bother anyone. He used to send 50,000 rupees every month for the house and my medicines," I said quietly. But it stopped. "About 3 months ago." Bilal looked up, his face full of genuine confusion. "What? No, Ami, I send it. I send it every month. I set up an automatic transfer. I told Sania to manage it." I looked at my hands. When I asked her, she said she was moving it to a new special savings account for me. A surprise so it could grow. She said I shouldn't worry about it. Bilal's confusion melted into annoyance. "See, it's fine, Ami. It's an investment. You should have just trusted her." But Harun was not looking at Bilal. He was looking at me. And in his eyes I saw not confusion, but a dawning, terrible understanding. "A special account," Harun repeated, his voice flat. "I see. Bilal, go get your mother some water. We will discuss this in the morning." After Bilal, the next morning I was discharged. The doctor said I was lucky. He said the damage was minimal, but that I must never be under such stress again. He looked at Bilal when he said it. Harun arranged for my discharge, and he insisted on driving me home. Bilal and Sania followed in their own car. When we arrived at my house, the 4 of us, it felt like a funeral. The air was thick and heavy. Harun asked us all to sit in the living room. I sat in my chair by the window. The stain from the spilled tea was still on the floor, a dark map of the night before. Bilal sat on the sofa, and Sania sat next to him, her hand gripping his, her knuckles white. She looked like a cornered animal. Harun placed his briefcase on the small table and clicked it open. He did not look at anyone. He just pulled out a stack of papers. "I made a few calls this morning," Harun said, his voice echoing in the small room. "As Bilal's godfather and your late husband's executor, I still have influence." He looked at Bilal. "Your son, Bilal, has been transferring 50,000 rupees on the 1st of every month." "Just as he said." Bilal let out a sigh of relief. "See? I told you, Uncle." Sania smiled, a small, tight smile. "It's for her own good. An investment." "An investment," Harun repeated. He slid the first paper across the table. It was a bank statement. An investment in the Sania Ali Signature Boutique account. An account opened 4 months ago. The same month the transfers to your mother stopped? Sania's face went white. It was not a special savings account in my name. It was her name. Bilal stared at the paper. He didn't understand. What is this, Sania? This is your business account." "She has been stealing your mother's money, Bilal," Harun said, his voice flat. 50,000 rupees. For 3 months. 150,000 rupees. Stolen. "No!" Sania shrieked, her voice losing its polish, turning sharp and ugly. "It was a loan. I was borrowing it. I was going to tell her. He gives me an allowance. It's not enough. This boutique is for us. So you stole from a widow?" Harun's voice was like ice. "You stole the money meant for her medicine, for her food?" Bilal looked like he had been struck. He was shaking his head, looking from the paper to his wife. Sonia, tell me this isn't true. Tell me it's a mistake. And then Sonia did the one thing I expected. She turned on me. Her face, twisted with rage, pointed at me in my chair. This is her fault, she screamed. She's old. She's forgetful. She probably spent the money herself and forgot. She's been trying to turn you against me since the day we met. She's jealous. She can't stand that you love me more. Bilal flinched. He looked at me, his eyes filled with a horrible, tearing doubt. Was he going to believe her? Was he going to choose the lie because it was beautiful? I had been silent. I had let Haroon speak. But this was my house. This was my son. And this was my life. I stood up. My legs were weak, but my voice was not. I am old, I said, my voice clear and steady, cutting through her screams. But I am not forgetful. I looked at Sonia. When I called you, the pain was in my chest. You were listening to music. You said, Ami, you always get so dramatic. You said, he can't come running every time you have a small ache. A small ache, you called it. I turned my eyes to my son. And then she hung up, Bilal. She hung up on your mother, who was on the floor, having a heart attack. The room was silent. Utterly silent. The only sound was Sonia's sharp, panicked breathing. Bilal's face, which had been torn, now hardened. The doubt was gone. In its place was a look I had never seen, a cold adult anger. He finally saw. He saw the woman beside him. He saw the bank statements. He heard my words, and he believed me. You left her, he whispered, his voice cracking. You left her on the floor? Bilal, baby, I didn't know. Sonia scrambled, grabbing his arm. She sounded fine. She just wanted attention. Get out, he said. His voice was quiet. What? I said, get out. He stood up, pulling his arm from her grasp as if her touch was poison. Get out of my mother's house. Bilal, she screamed. You can't do this. I am your wife. You are a thief, he said, his voice shaking with a fury I had never known. You are a liar. And you almost killed my mother. He walked to the door and opened it. Get out. She stared at him, her mask of beauty and grace completely gone, leaving only an ugly, desperate spite. She looked at me one last time, her eyes filled with pure hatred. Then she grabbed her purse and stormed out, slamming the door behind her. The sound echoed and then silence. Bilal stood at the door for a long time. He didn't turn around. I could see his shoulders shaking. He was crying for the wife he thought he had, crying for the mother he had almost lost. He finally turned. His face was a wreck of shame and grief. He walked over to me and he didn't kneel. He fell. He fell at my feet, wrapping his arms around my legs, his head on my knees, just as he had when he was a small boy who had scraped his knee. Ami, he sobbed, his voice broken. Ami, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Forgive me. Please, forgive me. I did not say it's okay. I did not say, I forgive you. Because it was not okay. And forgiveness was a long, long road. I simply placed my hand on his head, on the head of my son, the boy who was my world, who had forgotten me, and who had finally come home. I looked out the window at the bright morning sun, and I took a deep breath. The ache in my chest was gone. The house was quiet, and I was no longer a guest in my own life.